Hey, and welcome back to Love Restore. I'm your favorite host, Marshaun Olaniyan, and we are doing a wrap up of the Courage to Love series. So, buckle up your seatbelts. We're going to wrap this series up because I have been getting great feedback from this series, and a lot of people are like, yeah, I need the courage to love and stand up and be who I am, have the courage to actually ask for the things that I need, ask for the things that I want, say the things that I need to say. And not only that, but also to set the boundaries, right? To enforce the boundaries that I do set. So it's a lot of talk about having the courage to love, what that actually looks like and how we're going to show up and do that. But first, let me just say that I am a shift relationship strategist, and I help Black women over 40 through tailored strategies to show up better in their relationship for lasting change. So that's who I am. Again, this is Love Restored, and you are listening to KCCR Brownstone Cityscape. So again, we're going to do the wrap up. But before I do that, let me tell you briefly why I decided to start Love Restored. Essentially, Love Restored was decided because just like so many of you out there, I struggled with loving myself. I struggled with owning who I am. I struggled with knowing how to begin a healthy relationship, let alone how to show up in a healthy relationship, and even choosing a partner to have a sustainable, healthy relationship. And because I was not taught any tools, any strategies, have any sit down conversations with my parents, now I'm here teaching slash preaching these things that I know now work, that I had to bump and even hit my head a time or a thousand. And so this gray hair is not here just because it's pretty, although it is. It's here because I had to learn some things that I'm now passing along to not only you who are listening, but also my clients, as well as my nieces and nephews, those that are listening, and even instilling these so important tools and even information and strategies even in my young daughter as we speak. So, as I mentioned, we are wrapping up the Courage to Love series and what that looks like. And so, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this. So, this series is an ultimate exploration of what it means for Black women specifically to love deeply, authentically, authentically, can't speak, and unconditionally without sacrificing their self worth, their dignity, or emotional well being. Because many of us, love can feel layered. We carry ancestral strength, cultural expectations, and the deep desire to be loved for who we are, flaws, magic, and all. But too often, we're asked to pour from an empty cup or to endure love that does not honor us. So, this series was an invitation for you to rewrite your narrative. Loving with courage means taking emotional risk, knowing that vulnerability is not weakness, but strength. It's having the audacity to show up as your full, unapologetic, unapologetic self and expecting others to meet you there. It's about choosing the love even after heartbreak. We must get past the heartbreak and choose love once again, but with wisdom, discernment, as well as the power to say, I deserve more. Sis, if you don't believe it, you deserve more. So, through this series, we took a deep dive into the emotional risk, the healing, and the boundaries that come with courageous love. So let's look at some of the key topics that we talked about. We talked about what courageous love looks like, where we explored vulnerability, trust, emotional risk, and self love as fundamental elements. We also discussed what courageous love feels like, understanding the emotional complexity of love, including vulnerability, excitement, and emotional intensity. We also discuss what shapes our views on courageous love. And this is examining how past relationships have treated us, self awareness, healing, values, and resilience shapes how you approach love with courage. Another topic we discussed was loving yourself before getting romantically involved. And I know that that one could be like, I don't know, I've done this the time or three. Well, if you happen to go down that road of divorce or breakup once again, now it's time for you to take some time out from dating, from being in a romantic relationship, and date yourself. Get to know who you are, get to know what flaws keep surfacing so you can stop repeating the same things over and over again, because we're not insane, right? And the definition of insanity is what? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. It does not work that way. So if you are in a timeout from dating, don't just make it a timeout for dating and then you oft everything about men and relationships. Do something in this time to make sure that when said relationship comes back around, that you can choose better, you can identify red flags, you can stop ignoring red flags, and you can either know and be intentional about the person that you choose, or say, you know what, nah, he ain't for me, and be okay with you being able to walk away from that person and that particular relationship, because it's only going to result in prolonged hurt, prolonged pain, only to end up in the same situation that you are trying to avoid, which is a breakup. Or even sometimes we don't learn after the first marriage, we go through another one, and then we still end up as another divorcee. And we know statistics have it at 50, it's nationwide, 52% first marriage. In the Black community, it's 56 or 57%. So we are even higher for the first marriage ending in divorce. I am a part of that statistic. The second marriage is even higher. It's actually at 66%. And the third marriage is even higher. So all of that is to say, if we can really own and hone who we are, get our spirituality intact, make God first in our lives, then our relationships will be that much better. We will feel much better. We will understand what a godly relationship actually looks like and be able to stand in that. So now I digress. The final topic that we talked about, which was last week, was unconditional love without feeling like a fool, which is learning how to love unconditionally while maintaining your self-respect, setting those boundaries that I spoke about, and protecting your emotional well-being. So here are some of the takeaways to apply in your relationship. So one of the things is to embrace vulnerability. I talked about that a whole lot in one of the previous episodes, because vulnerability allows yourself to be open, to be authentic in love, even though it comes with emotional risk. It's just a part of the game. But true connection is only possible when you let down your guard, when you break down that brick wall and you allow the other person to truly see who you are and experience who you are. This allows someone to see your true self, or that authentic self. If your partner, if you are in a relationship right now and your partner has never seen you without makeup, then he has not been able to truly fall in love with you. He's fallen in love with the mask, literally the mask that you have on, especially if it's full face all the time. He never gets to see you without foundation. He has to see the entirety of your mask, literally. And I'm not opposed to makeup. I don't particularly like foundation, powder. I don't particularly like that, so I don't wear it. But as you see, I have on lips. I do a little bit of eyebrows. Today I don't have it on, but I do mascara and eyeliner. I don't have it on today. But so I'm not opposed to makeup, but let it enhance what they can already truly see about you. And again, I'm not even saying you can't go full face. Go full face. But if you're in a relationship, your partner needs to see you without full face, so they can love you with makeup as well as without makeup. So you don't always feel that you have to be pressured to be on all the time. And that's just one example about makeup. It could be maybe you're a person that wears lace fronts or braids or wigs, etc. all the time. they need to see what's up underneath there so they can love you not only with this, but also without it. Like I had a client who was telling me she was literally in the situation specifically when it came to her hair. Her hair was either always in braids or she was really, really into lace fronts. Every guy that she was with, she was never comfortable enough. And then she also suffered from the thinning edges, like baldness, really. It wasn't even just thinning, it was baldness. Long story short, every guy that she got with, it was always the mask. It wasn't necessarily makeup, but it was absolutely the lace front. She loved them. She looked beautiful with them, whatever. No big deal. However, she got with this one guy, the guy that she's currently with, and not to say that the relationship was perfect because nobody is, right? However, she got with him and she was able to demask, take off her wig and just be herself with him. And she's never been able to do that with anybody. And so, again, the relationship is not perfect, but now she has the courage to show up not only with him, but also in public. Because that was another thing. She never really wanted to be out in public, period, without her mask, her lace front. Now she's with the guy that can see her with her thinning, because now they're thinning. Anyway, that's a different story. Her edges are now thinning versus being bold. And her natural hair is really, really short. But she still wears the lace front. She just doesn't do it all the time. And she can demask with him. That is very important. Sharing your vulnerabilities, the things you do think that somebody's going to turn away from you for. Those are the very things that you need to be able to open up about in your romantic relationship. For sure. Okay. So then another thing, another takeaway that you must apply to your relationships is setting those boundaries. You absolutely must set healthy boundaries and be willing to enforce the boundary that you set, because boundaries are essential for protecting your emotional and mental health. Loving courageously does not mean accepting disrespect or mistreatment. Absolutely not. But what it does mean is knowing when to say no and walking away from harmful situations. That is a must. The third takeaway is to understand and know your worth as a Black woman, as a provider, as a mother, as a sibling, as a wife, as a girlfriend, etc. All of the titles that we can put on ourselves. Know your worth. Before entering any relationship is the ideal time, but I get it. I'm 47 myself, so I'm no spring chicken, right? Ideally, I would love to help like the teenagers before. And some of the teenagers had relationships too. And many teenage relationships are toxic, whether you realize it or not. I don't remember the actual statistic, but I want to say I don't know the number and I don't want to lie, but I do want to say that a lot of teenagers, specifically girls, have been in abusive relationships. So now I specifically work with adults, but now just think about the damage that we could potentially undo if we talk to our daughters about these things before relationships came about. And as you heard me just say, I don't know the percentage, but it's a high number of teens have been in abusive relationships. So we have to start rewriting this narrative, not only for ourselves, but also for our children. So we can be a part of breaking that generational curse. So understand and knowing your worth before you get into a relationship, it affirms your self-worth. You won't and will not need to seek validation from other people. Instead, you will cultivate self love and confidence from yourself, because this will ensure that your approach to love is from a place of strength and not neediness. Each of us has to understand what we are bringing to the table, what our worth is. And that is something that I particularly had to deal with myself. I'm sure if you've been hearing from me any part of time, you know my colorism story. I was teased as a youngin, And I didn't believe that I was ugly because that's not what I heard. So that wasn't the hearing. We start to believe it by hearing and hearing, hearing. That wasn't what I heard. But I always heard the derogatory statements and even terms because of the darkness of my skin. It was never that you're black and ugly. It was just, wow, you're so black. Or I remember walking home with one of my siblings who is of a lighter shade and also is a boy. And this is a side note because it's funny that a lot of people will say stuff about dark skinned black women, black girls, but the same skin tone on a black man they find desirable, sexy. And I just think that that's funny because you know that we cut from the same cloth. We got the same parent, at least one. Now, me and this particular sibling, we got the same parents. We're just different shades. Parents, plural. We're just different shades. But we know that we come in different shades. We are people that come in different shades. Anyway, I digress. So I've heard all of the derogatory terms. I was brought up in that era and I started to believe. And I wrote my own narrative that because I was dark, I must be ugly. Even though I've never heard ugly ever. I've always heard pretty. I've always heard cute. My flaw, if you will, is because, or I should say was, because I don't believe it now, but I did absolutely believed it and I owned it as if it was my own narrative that I was saying to myself about myself. Now that I'm older, of course, I know that it was other people's influence and the things that they say about you. And have you ever noticed that you don't think anything is wrong with you unless somebody else points it out? Let that sink in. Like literally, I had no idea that I was of a darker shade because I just didn't know. You know, as a child, that's not something that you really pay attention to until somebody points it out to you. And once people pointed it out to me, it's like you pointed out, 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 and then everybody kept pointing it out to me. And when I say everybody, of course, not everybody, but it was enough people for me to start. Well, I guess dark is bad. Dark is bad. Dark must be bad because don't nobody like dark. Which brings me to, and this is a side note, just so we're clear. Um, I remember listening to this study, and I can't remember the title of the study, but essentially it was where they had a group of kids, like 4, 5, 6 year olds, somewhere around there, and they were having them color the pictures. The actual picture was the same, and then they would have the kids color pictures based off of words that they would use. And essentially, I'm sorry, that's a lie. What they did is the picture was the same, but the shades on each one was different. That's what it was. And so the kids didn't color them. The pictures came that way, or the sheets, whatever. So when they would ask questions about good, bad, cute, pretty, ugly, all of that stuff, all of the beautiful, good things always went to the lighter shades slash white. And all of the bad, derogatory things that we think about always went to the darkest shade that they had on that sheet. And so I obviously, for myself, even though that study was not around when I was a child, it's something that's implanted in us. And I know that a lot of it does have to go back to us being mind effed during slavery, and then having the field slave and then the house slave. And the house slave was still a slave, but didn't get as bad treatment because the skin was fairer. And also, let's be real, that was master's daughter. So she was in the house, but her darker siblings were out in the field. Anywho, I know that a lot of that has been passed down from generation to generation to generation, but I thought that it was funny because not only was, and I'm going back to the study, funny but sad. Not only were the white kids choosing the very good to the whitish shade, lightest whitest shade on the sheet of all of the good, beautiful, pretty, all of those beautiful words that we want to hear, the good stuff. Not only were the white kids doing it, the black kids were doing it too. And every time they were saying, well, which one of the kids, something derogatory, right? So which one of the kids would you say is the bad kid? It was always the darkest one. Not even the shades in the middle. It was the darkest one. Well, which one is the ugliest one? It was the darkest one. Which one is the most beautiful? It was the lightest one or whitest one, right? So all of the good stuff went to the white. Which one is the smartest one? I do remember that one. It also went to the white. All of the bad stuff, the person that's going to be in trouble the most, the person that's the bad, the person that's the ugly, all went to the darkest shade. And so even though that study wasn't around for me, there has to be something to it that we have this ingrained in us as little tykes, the things that we see, whether we realize what our children are being exposed to, they say things. I have a girlfriend right now where her daughter sees color a whole lot. She's 8. And that's one of the things she's trying to they're working through it right now. But essentially, um, my daughter and her daughter plays together. My daughter is a few shades lighter than me, but darker, and the other little girl is of a much lighter complexion. And so I created a doll for my daughter, and the doll wasn't the exact shade, whatever. And so she was just like, "Oh, that doll can't be you. It's because you guys are not the same color." Now, I didn't know this history, right? Because she's not my child. But when the kids walked away, me and her mom was talking about it. She was like, "Yeah, I guess they talk about it a lot in school." Now, mind you, she's 8, and so she's in elementary school, and they're talking a lot about color. And she wasn't necessarily saying my daughter's ugly or anything, no, but it was, or even like your skin is ugly. It wasn't anything like that, but because her and her mom have had several conversations about color and why it's so important, or why it's not so important, or why you're so focused on color, that stood out to her. And essentially, she told her to cut it out. And so I was trying to figure out like what's underneath all of this, what's happening. And so she filled me in on the conversations that her and her daughter has had about color. And so my point, kids, even though they don't realize, they are being um, programmed in a certain way to look at things a certain way. And so we really have to be very, very vigilant about the things that our children are being exposed to. And that is important for yourself as well, which is why I have mentioned, not in this particular series, but I have mentioned we must guard our ears, we must guard our eyes, we must guard our circle. Now, that is going to help you when you're out in the world and somebody says something derogatory to you. You won't hold that and walk and run with it. And now you're depressed because of something, because your circle has already instilled great things in you, as well as you instilling that in your friends and you even instilling it within yourself. Like you're believing that you're beautiful, you're believing that you're confident, you speak up for yourself, you're not shy, you're not looking at the floor when somebody's saying, when somebody's saying something bad, if somebody's picking on you, you actually speak up and tell them, I don't like that. Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to stop, but you're not at least letting somebody just do what they want to do to you, right? And so all of that stuff is important, but I digress. All of it matters. All of it matters. Now, the next thing that you must apply in your relationship, let's get back on topic, is to prioritize your self care. It means loving yourself, right? Taking care of your physical, your mental, and your emotional well being. Don't neglect your self care, especially in your relationships. Like, don't do it to yourself. Don't do it to your spouse. Don't do it to your kids. Every one of y'all in the relationship realm, in your sphere, need me time. All of y'all need time to decompress, recharge, and then come back out into the world so you're able to give more of yourself. But make sure that you are nurturing yourself so that you have the emotional capacity to give to others. You don't want to always have to be up under your partner. This is something that I literally had to learn the hard way because um, my marriage, I didn't realize that me time was a thing. I didn't realize that my husband actually needed space. And because we were younger, he couldn't articulate that he just needed some space away from me. Nothing against me. It's just he wanted to do him. He wanted to do some man things. He wanted to hang out with his man friends or travel or whatever it is that he wanted to do, but he wasn't able to articulate those things. And at the time, um, self help and trying to do better in your relationship wasn't necessarily a thing. It is popular nowadays more and more, but it wasn't really a thing. And so we were just trying to figure out. And he was just mad, and I didn't understand why he was just mad. And I also didn't understand that he was just really just trying to ask for me time because we did everything together. So I didn't know that I didn't know that he needed that because he couldn't articulate it well. Anywho, the next thing is that you must be selective with your love. Not everyone deserves your love, and it's okay to be selective about who you allow into your life. Choose partners who align with your values and respect your boundaries. It is that important. It really is. Sis, it's that important. Be selective with your love, not only your romantic, but also in your friendships. And let's be real, if they're not people that's outside of your house, and I would even venture to say them too, depending on what's happening, what the moment is about. But if it's not people that's helping you do anything in your life other than bring you down and bring you grief, distance yourself, whether you have some blood relation or not, because you can choose your sphere of influence, the people that are around you. And just because y'all have the same blood does not mean that they need to be around you, especially once you two become adults. Be selective with your love. Be selective with your peace of mind. Be selective with who gets access to your child or children. Be selective. Lean into your God given discernment. That butterfly feeling or that something, that eeriness that's happening, is there for a reason. It's trying to call your attention to something that is not right. Take heed to it. Another thing is to maintain your emotional independence, even in your relationships. And I would venture to say, even in the healthiest relationship, it's crucial to remain emotionally independent. Your happiness and fulfillment should not be entirely dependent on your partner. It's not healthy. Cultivate a strong sense of self to avoid feeling like a fool in love. And then finally, you have to let go. Let go of control, sis. I know I literally work with a lot of clients that struggle with this. You can't control how someone responds to your love, or whether they'll even return the love that you are giving to them. Focus on loving freely without trying to control the outcome. And trust that the right people will meet you where you are. By applying these takeaways, you can engage in relationships from a place of emotional security and strength, ensuring that your love, whether for yourself or others, is both courageous and healthy. Thank you so much for being here for this past 30 minutes. I am your favorite host, Marshaun Olaniyan, and you're listening to Love Restored on KCCR Brownstone Cityscapes. Again, I am Marshaun Olaniyan, and I help Black women over 40 show up differently in their relationships using tailored strategies for lasting change. If that sounds like something that you need help with, then absolutely reach out to me at Marshaun@MarshaunOlaniyan.com. I love you guys, and I will see you next week where we begin a new series.